The Valtrian fleet would be stranded. 4 minutes. Hana closed her eyes. She thought about her fam. The destruction of the flagship changed everything. High Executor Venthar was dead, vaporized with his command staff. The Valtrian fleet was leaderless, stranded in Earth's solar system with no way to call for reinforcements. Their supply lines were cut. Their wormhole network was collapsed. They were alone, surrounded by an enemy that had just proven it could destroy their most powerful ship. Sub-Commander Krelthas took emergency command. He was younger than most Valtrian officers, only 70 years old. He had served under Venthar for decades and had watched with growing horror as the human campaign spiraled into disaster. Now the disaster was his responsibility. His first report to the Valtrian High Council was transmitted by conventional communication, which meant it would take weeks to reach the capital. In it, he detailed the losses: 1 flagship destroyed, 16 capital ships crippled, over 20,000 troops dead, medical facilities overwhelmed, supply situation critical, and no way to retreat or reinforce. Then he waited for orders that would take weeks to arrive. Commander Yuna Lee didn't wait. The moment the flagship exploded, she launched every resistance cell into action. The Valtrians were confused, demoralized, and leaderless. It was time to push them off Earth completely. The attacks came from everywhere. Valtrian ground bases were hit with waves of suicide bombers. Supply convoys were ambushed. Landing zones were shelled with captured alien artillery. Everywhere the Valtrians turned, humans were attacking. But Yuna was doing something more important than just fighting. She was broadcasting propaganda. Using captured Valtrian equipment, she sent messages directly to the enemy fleet. Images of destroyed Valtrian ships, casualty reports, cost analyses showing how much the Empire was losing every day. And then she made an offer. Leave now while you still can. Every day you stay, more of you die. Your commanders have failed you. Your Empire has abandoned you. Retreat to your ships, leave our system, and we'll let you go. Stay, and we'll destroy you like we destroyed your flagship. The message spread through the Valtrian fleet like wildfire. Soldiers who had been fighting for 8 months started asking questions. Why were they still here? What were they dying for? Earth's resources were destroyed. The human population was still fighting. The High Council hadn't sent reinforcements. Admiral Suji Kang was still alive. The Indomitable had survived the battle, though barely. The ship was held together with emergency welds and desperate prayers. Half the crew was dead, but the carrier was still capable of fighting. She received Yuna's broadcast and understood immediately what the commander was doing. Psychological warfare. Breaking the enemy's will. Suji could help with that. She led the Indomitable in one more attack. This time she targeted a Valtrian medical ship. Not to destroy it, but to capture it. The boarding action was brutal. Valtrian crew members, most of them doctors and nurses, surrendered quickly when faced with armed humans who had nothing to lose. Suji broadcast footage of the captured ship. She showed the Valtrian wounded being treated by their own medical staff. She showed human medics helping injured aliens. Then she had the ship's captain make a statement. I am Captain Thelkin of the medical frigate Healing Light. I have surrendered to human forces. They have treated us with honor and provided safe passage for our wounded. The High Council has lied to us. The humans are not savages. They are defending their home. This war is unjust. I urge all Valtrian forces to stand down. The statement was broadcast across all Valtrian frequencies. Sub-Commander Krelthas tried to suppress it, but it was too late. Doubt had taken root in the fleet. On Earth's surface, the bioweapon Dr. Taeyang Shin had created was still spreading. Valtrian troops were dying in terrible numbers. Their medical facilities couldn't cope. Quarantine protocols had broken down completely. Soldiers were refusing deployment to planetary duty, knowing it meant infection and death. Taeyang himself was dead. He had succumbed to a conventional Valtrian bombardment 3 weeks earlier. But his weapon was still killing the enemy. It would continue killing them until they left Earth completely. Engineer Minho Bai was leading reconstruction efforts in liberated areas. As Valtrian forces pulled back from outer cities, humans moved in. They rebuilt fortifications. They repaired infrastructure. They showed that humanity could recover from anything. Minho also led salvage teams. Every crashed Valtrian ship was stripped for technology. Humans were learning fast. They reverse-engineered alien plasma weapons, shield generators, and power systems. In a few years, if Earth survived, humanity would have technology that matched the Empire's. Sub-Commander Krelthas watched the situation deteriorate. His troops were demoralized. His ships were damaged. His supplies were running low. And now human forces were using captured Valtrian weapons against him. They had even begun attacking in captured alien armor, making it hard to distinguish friend from enemy. He called a meeting with his senior captains. What are our options? The answers were grim. Continue fighting and lose more ships and soldiers every day. Request reinforcements that might take months to arrive if they arrived at all. Or retreat and face the shame of being the first Valtrian fleet to lose to a primitive species. One captain spoke carefully. Commander, I have served the Empire for 90 years. I have fought in 12 campaigns. I have never seen anything like these humans. They don't fight for territory or resources. They fight because they refuse to lose. Every one of them is willing to die to hurt us. We can't win this. Are you suggesting we surrender? I'm suggesting we preserve what remains of this fleet. The High Council will need ships when this incident becomes widely known. Other species will rebel. We'll need every vessel to maintain control. Krelthas understood what the captain was really saying. The Earth campaign was already lost. The question was how many Valtrian lives they would waste before admitting it. He made his decision. Begin pulling troops back to the ships. We'll establish a defensive perimeter in orbit, while we wait for orders from the High Council. But the High Council had already made their decision. 3 weeks after the flagship's destruction, the response arrived. Sub-Commander Krelthas was ordered to withdraw immediately. The conquest of Earth was officially abandoned. The entire fleet was to return to Valtrian space for reassignment. The order was marked with the High Council's seal and a brief note. Earth is not worth the cost. We have lost too much already. Retreat before we lose more. Krelthas broadcast the order to his fleet. Many captains were relieved. Some were ashamed. All of them began preparing for departure, but one group refused. High Executor Venthar had left loyalists aboard several ships, officers who believed that showing weakness would destroy the Empire. They attempted to override the withdrawal order and continue the bombardment. Commander Yuna Lee learned about the attempted mutiny through intercepted communications. She immediately contacted Sub-Commander Krelthas directly. It was the first time humans and Valtrians had spoken without threats. Commander Krelthas, we know about the mutiny. We can help you stop it. The Valtrian was surprised. Why would you help us? Because we want you to leave. All of you. Peacefully if possible. But if some of your ships stay to fight, we'll destroy them. That means more death on both sides. We've all had enough death. Krelthas considered this. The humans were offering to help the Valtrian fleet against its own rogue elements. It was unprecedented. But then, everything about this campaign had been unprecedented. What do you propose? The ships refusing to leave are low on supplies. We've been attacking their supply lines for months. If you cut them off from fleet resources, they'll be forced to retreat or die. No need for battle, just patience. It was elegant. It was practical. And it would work. Krelthas ordered the loyalist ships isolated from fleet supplies. Within a week, they had no choice but to comply with the withdrawal order or starve. The Valtrian fleet began leaving Earth orbit. Ship by ship, they departed. Some went quickly, eager to leave the death world behind. Others went slowly, ashamed of their failure. All of them left. Commander Yuna Lee stood on a rooftop in Seoul, watching the alien ships disappear into the sky. The city was ruins around her. The air still smelled of smoke. Millions were dead. Earth was broken, but Earth was free. Admiral Suji brought the Indomitable into Earth orbit for the first time in 8 months. The battered carrier was met by cheering from resistance forces worldwide. She broadcast one final message to the departing Valtrians. You came to our world expecting easy conquest. You thought we were primitive, weak. You were wrong. We are humans. We don't surrender. We don't forget. And we don't forgive. Tell your empire what happened here. Tell them that Earth is off limits. Tell them that if they ever return, we'll be ready. And next time we won't let any of you leave. The last Valtrian ship jumped to light speed and vanished. Earth was alone again. But this time, humanity had something they didn't have before. Alien technology, battle experience, and the knowledge that they could stand against the stars. Captain Jiwo Nam, a former diplomat who had spent the war coordinating with resistance cells, addressed the United Earth government. We have a choice to make. Do we rebuild in isolation or do we join the galactic community? The Valtrians proved the missiles from Earth's surface never reached the flagship. Valtrian point defense systems destroyed 90% of them. The remaining 10% either missed or caused minor damage. It wasn't enough. High Executor Venthar's atmospheric incineration devices remained intact and operational. Commander Yuna Lee watched the failed attack with despair. The Indomitable was still fighting, but it was clearly dying. Its hull was breached in a dozen places. Its engines were failing. Admiral Suji had bought them time, but time for what? They had no way to reach those devices. Then Dr. Hana Cho's voice came through on her communicator. "Commander, I have an idea. It's insane, but it might work." Yuna felt a surge of surprise. She had thought Hana died 6 months ago in the first attack. "Dr. Cho? You're alive?" "Barely. I evacuated to one of the cargo haulers before the EMP went off. I've been at Luna Base since then, studying wrecked Valtrian ships." Hana's voice was strained, exhausted. "I think I can collapse their wormhole network. Explain quickly." "We have less than 40 hours. The Valtrians use artificial wormholes for faster-than-light travel. They need massive energy generators to stabilize them. If we overload one of their FTL drives, it creates a chain reaction. Every active wormhole in the system collapses. Their reinforcement fleets get stranded days away at normal speed." Yuna understood immediately. "And their ships in orbit lose their escape route. They'll be trapped here." "Exactly. But someone needs to board their flagship and manually trigger the overload. The Valtrians would never allow remote access to something that critical. How do we board the flagship when it's surrounded by their entire fleet?" Hana was quiet for a moment. "We wait until they activate the atmospheric incinerators. All their attention will be on Earth. They won't expect an attack from Luna Base." Yuna felt cold. "You want to wait until they start burning Earth?" "It's the only chance. They'll drop their guard for those few minutes. We use a captured Valtrian shuttle, approach during the confusion and board before they realize what's happening." It was madness. Waiting until the device is activated meant millions more would die in the first few seconds. But if they failed to board the flagship, everyone died anyway. At least this way they had a chance. How many people do you need? 50. Engineers to reach the FTL core. Soldiers to keep the Valtrians away from us long enough to trigger the overload. You'll all die." "I know," Hana said quietly. "But Earth dies anyway if we don't try." Yuna closed her eyes. Command meant making impossible choices. This was the most impossible one yet. "Do it. I'll send you our best fighters." The call for volunteers went out across all resistance channels. 50 people for a suicide mission. The response was overwhelming. Hundreds volunteered. Yuna had to turn people away. Private Hyun Kim was one of the first to volunteer. He left his resistance cell in Busan and made his way north through the ruins. It took 3 days of dangerous travel, avoiding Valtrian patrols and bombardment. When he reached the extraction point, a captured alien shuttle was waiting. Inside were 49 other volunteers. Soldiers, engineers, scientists. The youngest was 19. The oldest was 62. All of them knew they weren't coming back. Dr. Hana Cho addressed them during the flight to Luna Base. "The Valtrians will activate their incinerators in 36 hours. We'll approach during the activation sequence. I need 15 minutes to overload the FTL drive. Your job is to keep them away from me for those 15 minutes. After that, the chain reaction happens automatically. The explosion will destroy the flagship and collapse every wormhole in the system." "What happens to us?" someone asked. "We vaporize instantly. We won't feel anything." Nobody spoke. They had all accepted death already. The only question was whether their deaths would matter. The captured shuttle was Valtrian, taken from a crashed ship and repaired by human engineers. Engineer Minho Bay had personally overseen the work, making sure it would pass basic scans. It wouldn't fool a detailed inspection, but they only needed it to work for a few minutes. At Luna Base, they waited. 36 hours felt like forever. Hyun spent the time writing letters he knew would never be delivered. Messages for his parents, probably dead. For his sister, definitely dead. For friends who were just memories now. It helped somehow putting his thoughts into words. Dr. Hana Cho spent the time reviewing schematics of Valtrian ships. She had memorized the route to the FTL core, but she reviewed it anyway. 15 minutes. That's all she needed. 15 minutes to save Earth. The atmospheric incinerators activated exactly on schedule. Commander Yuna Lee watched from her bunker as the sky turned white. The temperature in exposed areas jumped 50 degrees in seconds. 100 degrees in minutes. Anyone outside was cooked alive. The ocean started to boil. High Executor Venthar watched with satisfaction. Finally, the human resistance would end. In 6 hours, Earth's surface would be sterile. The annoying insects would be exterminated. The Empire could salvage what resources remained and move on. He didn't notice the small Valtrian shuttle approaching from Luna's direction. Why would he? It transmitted proper identification codes. It was just another supply shuttle. Nothing worth attention while the incinerators were operating. The shuttle docked with the flagship's secondary airlock. 50 humans in stolen Valtrian armor stepped aboard. They moved quickly, weapons ready. The first Valtrian crew members they encountered died before they could raise the alarm. Hana led the group toward the engineering section. She knew the route. 3 corridors, 2 elevator shafts, and 1 large cargo bay. 5 minutes at a run. They had practiced at Luna Base, timing every movement. Then the alarm started. Someone had found the bodies. "The flagship went into lockdown. Move faster," Hana shouted. They ran through the corridors as blast doors started closing. Hyun held up a door with his armored shoulders while others scrambled through. The door closed on his armor, crushing it, but he got through. Valtrian security forces were responding. Plasma fire filled the corridors. 3 humans died in the first exchange, 5 more in the second. The group fought forward, trading lives for meters. They reached the cargo bay. 50 Valtrian soldiers were waiting in defensive positions. It was a kill zone, no cover. "No way around, I'll clear it," Hyun said. Before anyone could stop him, he grabbed every grenade from dead comrades and charged into the bay. Plasma bolts hit him immediately. His armor failed. He was burning, dying, but he kept running. He threw the grenades into the Valtrian positions and dove behind a cargo container. The explosions tore through the bay. When the smoke cleared, most of the Valtrians were dead or wounded. The survivors were disoriented. The human team rushed through, shooting anything that moved. Hyun didn't move. He had given everything to clear the path. Someone stopped to check him, but he was already gone. They left his body and kept moving. No time for grief. Hana reached the FTL core with 23 survivors. The massive reactor pulsed with energy, maintaining the wormholes that connected this system to Valtrian space. She pulled up the control interface and started the override sequence. Valtrian reinforcements arrived. They filled the corridor outside, trying to reach the reactor chamber. The remaining humans formed a defensive line. They had one job: keep the aliens away from Hana for 15 minutes, 14 minutes. Plasma fire was constant. Humans fell one by one. The Valtrians kept coming. For every alien killed, 2 more appeared. 13 minutes. Only 10 humans left defending the entrance, 12 minutes. 5 humans. They were out of ammunition and fighting with captured weapons. One took a plasma bolt to the chest and kept firing until his heart stopped. 11 minutes. 3 humans left. They formed a triangle covering all approaches. Valtrians were climbing over their own dead to reach the reactor. 10 minutes. 2 humans. They had fallen back to the reactor chamber entrance. Hana worked behind them, her fingers flying across alien controls. The reactor's warning lights were flashing. She was pushing it past safety limits, forcing it to generate more power than it was designed to handle. 9 minutes. 1 human left. He stood in the doorway with a captured Valtrian energy blade, cutting down anything that tried to pass. He was covered in wounds, bleeding, but he wouldn't fall. 8 minutes. The last defender went down. Valtrians poured into the reactor chamber. Hana didn't look up. She kept working. 7 minutes. They grabbed her, pulled her away from the controls. She smiled at them. "Too late," she said in perfect Valtrian. She had learned their language during 6 months of studying their technology. "It's already cascading. You have 7 minutes before this ship explodes, 6 now. You should probably evacuate." The Valtrians stared at the reactor in horror. The energy readings were climbing past critical. Alarms were screaming in their language. They dropped Hana and ran for the emergency shuttles. Hana sat down, her back against the reactor. She was exhausted. She thought about the people who had died to get her here. Hyun and his grenades, the defenders who had bought her time, the 47 others who had volunteered for a suicide mission because it was the only way to save Earth. She checked her watch. 5 minutes. Outside, on Earth's surface, the atmospheric incinerators were still burning. People were dying. But in 5 minutes that would end. The flagship would explode. The wormhole network would collapse. None of them had fought like this. The humans were supposed to be primitive, weak. 6 months into the occupation, Earth was a graveyard. Half the planet's cities were rubble. Billions were dead. The oceans were polluted with ash. The sky was perpetually gray with smoke. But humanity was still fighting. Admiral Suji Kang commanded Earth's last functioning warship from an asteroid base hidden in the belt between Mars and Jupiter. The carrier Indomitable had survived because it was in deep space when the invasion began, too far away to help. Now it was humanity's only hope of striking back beyond Earth's orbit. Suji was 45 years old and had spent her entire adult life in space. She knew the solar system better than most people knew their own neighborhoods. She also knew that her ship couldn't defeat the Valtrian fleet. The Indomitable had been designed for exploration, not war. Its weapons were meant to destroy asteroids, not military vessels. But Suji had learned something important over 6 months of watching the Valtrians. They were predictable. They followed the same routes. They resupplied on the same schedules. They were an empire, which meant they operated by rules and regulations and bureaucratic procedures. Humanity didn't have those limitations anymore. All the rules had burned with the cities. "We're going to hit their supply convoys," Suji told her crew. There were 83 people aboard the Indomitable. Before the war, the carrier had needed a crew of 300. Now they made do with whoever had survived. "Ma'am, we'll be outnumbered," her tactical officer said. Lieutenant Jinsel was young, maybe 25, and had been a junior navigator before the invasion. Now she was Suji's second in command because everyone more senior was dead. "We're already outnumbered," Suji replied. "But supply ships aren't warships. They're slow, poorly armed, and full of things that explode. We hit them fast, destroy as much as we can, and disappear into the asteroid belt before their escorts can respond." "And if they follow us?" Suji smiled grimly. "Then we lead them into the rocks and let physics do our fighting." The first raid was almost too easy. A Valtrian supply convoy was traveling from their staging area beyond Mars to Earth orbit. 3 cargo ships escorted by 2 fighters. The Indomitable came out of the asteroid belt at full thrust, fired every weapon it had, and was gone before the Valtrians could respond. All 3 supply ships exploded. The fighters tried to pursue, but Suji led them into a dense field of spinning rocks. One fighter was destroyed by a collision. The other gave up and retreated. The supplies those ships carried would have fed the Valtrian ground troops for a month. Now they were debris floating in space. Suji broadcast the footage back to Earth on every frequency she could find. She wanted the Resistance to know they weren't alone. She wanted the Valtrians to know that humans could strike anywhere. Commander Yuna Lee received the transmission in her bunker. She watched the footage of Valtrian ships exploding and felt something she hadn't felt in months. Hope. Not much, just a spark. But it was enough. She called her senior staff together. "The Admiral just proved something important. The Valtrians can be hurt in space. That means they're vulnerable everywhere. We need to make them understand that occupying Earth costs more than it's worth." "How do we do that?" General Park asked. He looked even older than before, his hair completely white now. "We destroy everything they came here for," Yuna said. She pulled up maps of Earth's remaining resources. Oil fields, mineral deposits, industrial facilities. If they can't profit from conquering us, maybe they'll leave. "You want to destroy our own resources?" "What good are resources if we're all dead or enslaved?" "We make Earth worthless to them. It's the only leverage we have." Engineer Minho Bay was put in charge of the destruction. He was 32 years old and had designed industrial systems before the war. Now he was designing their destruction. The oil fields went first. Minho's teams rigged them with explosives and incendiaries. When they detonated, the fires burned for weeks. Black smoke filled the sky. The Valtrians tried to extinguish them, but found that humans had sabotaged all the firefighting equipment. Next were the rare earth mineral mines. Minho collapsed them using carefully placed charges. Millions of tons of rock buried the deposits so deep that it would take decades to dig them out again. Industrial facilities were demolished. Power plants were wrecked. Anything the Valtrians might use was destroyed. Earth was committing economic suicide, but it was the only way to make the conquest unprofitable. High Executor Venthar watched the reports with growing fury. "They're destroying their own planet." "Yes, sir," his economic advisor said nervously. "At current rates, Earth's resource value will drop below the cost of occupation within 3 months. That's insane. What species destroys its own world? One that won't surrender, sir." Venthar slammed his fist on the console. The human resistance was like nothing the Empire had encountered. Most species fought to protect their resources, their cities, their way of life. When those were threatened, they surrendered. But humans seemed to care more about hurting their enemy than preserving anything. They would burn their entire world just to make the Empire bleed. He pulled up casualty reports. Over 15,000 Valtrian soldiers dead. 30 ships damaged or destroyed. Supply lines constantly disrupted. Medical facilities overwhelmed by the human bioweapon. And now they were losing the economic justification for the entire invasion. For the first time in his career, Venthar considered the possibility of failure. Private Hyun Kim's resistance cell had grown to 200 fighters. They controlled a section of Busan's ruins and had turned it into a fortress. The Valtrians had tried to dislodge them 3 times and failed each time. Hyun was no longer just a survivor. He was a leader. People looked to him for orders. Young fighters called him commander, though he had never asked for the title. He was planning the next raid when a message came through on the alien communication equipment. It was from another resistance cell, but the content made him freeze. They're preparing something big. Valtrian Command is moving troops away from civilian areas. They're consolidating around their landing zones. Hyun immediately sent the intelligence to Commander Yuna Lee. His instincts were screaming that something was wrong. The Valtrians didn't retreat. They didn't consolidate, unless they were preparing for something terrible. Yuna received the message and felt her blood run cold. She pulled up all intelligence reports from the past week. Troop movements, supply requisitions, communications intercepts. The pattern was clear once she knew what to look for. The Valtrians were preparing to use their ultimate weapon. Atmospheric incineration devices. They would turn Earth's atmosphere into a furnace, killing every living thing on the surface. The planet would be worthless, but at least the humans would be dead. She called an emergency meeting. They're going to burn the atmosphere. We have maybe 48 hours before the devices are deployed. The room went silent. Everyone understood what that meant. The war was over. Humanity had lost. Can we destroy the devices? Someone asked. They're in orbit, heavily guarded. We don't have any way to reach them. Yuna looked at the faces around her, exhausted, terrified, but still determined. We've made them bleed. We've proven that humans won't surrender. If this is the end, at least we die knowing we fought. No. Everyone turned to look at the speaker. It was an intelligence officer named Soman. She was young, barely out of university when the war began. There might be a way. Admiral Suji has a warship. If we can get her the intelligence she needs, maybe she can destroy those devices. Yuna felt that spark of hope again. Get me a secure channel to the Indomitable. Now. Admiral Suji Kang received the transmission while her ship was hiding in the asteroid belt. She read the intelligence report twice, then called her senior staff. The Valtrians are preparing atmospheric incinerators. If we don't stop them, Earth dies in 2 days. Her crew stared at her in horror. Lieutenant Jinsel spoke first. We can't reach the devices. They're surrounded by the Valtrian fleet. We'd be destroyed before we got close. I know, Suji said quietly. But we have to try. She pulled up a tactical map. The incineration devices were being assembled on the Valtrian flagship, deep in Earth orbit. To reach them, the Indomitable would have to fight through dozens of enemy ships. The odds of success were 0. The odds of survival were even lower. I need volunteers, Suji said. This is a suicide mission. Anyone who doesn't want to come can take a shuttle to the asteroid base. I won't think less of you. This isn't your fight to die in. Nobody moved. 83 crew members. Not one left, Lieutenant Jinsol smiled sadly. With respect, ma'am. We've been dead since the invasion began. We're just choosing how we die. I'd rather die fighting than hiding in an asteroid. The rest of the crew nodded. They had all lost families, friends, homes. Earth was dying and they would die with it, but they would hurt the enemy one last time. Then we go, Suji said. Full burn to Earth. We broadcast our attack on every frequency. Let the resistance know we tried. Let the Valtrians know that humans fight to the last breath. The Indomitable left the asteroid belt at maximum acceleration. Every alarm on every Valtrian ship in the system lit up. An Earth vessel was approaching at attack speed. High Executor Venthar smiled when he saw it. Finally, the last human warship would die and the resistance would lose its sim. 3 more Valtrian battle groups arrived within a week. They surrounded Earth like a steel cage, cutting off any escape. The first thing they did was destroy every satellite in orbit. Earth's communications went dark. GPS systems failed. The internet collapsed. Humanity was blind. The second thing they did was remove Fleet Commander Thelvis from command. The Valtrian High Council didn't tolerate failure. They sent High Executor Venthar, a commander known for crushing rebellions through terror. His orders were simple: break the humans or exterminate them. Venthar believed in making examples. He chose a city at random and burned it from orbit. Mumbai disappeared in a column of fire. 5 million people died in minutes. Then he broadcast a message: surrender now, or every day I will destroy another city. You have 24 hours. Commander Yuna Lee watched the broadcast from a bunker deep beneath the Himalayas. She was 29 years old and had been a tactical analyst before the invasion. Now she was one of the highest-ranking military officers still alive. Most of the generals had died when the aliens bombed the Pentagon, the Kremlin, and every other military headquarters on Earth. We can't surrender, she said quietly. The officers around her looked exhausted. They had been awake for days, coordinating what little remained of Earth's defenses. If we don't, they'll kill everyone, General Park said. He was 70 years old and looked like he had aged a decade in the past week. They'll kill everyone anyway, Yuna replied. Look at their history. She pulled up files on the screen. 43 conquered planets. On 30 of them, the native population is extinct. On the others, they're slaves. Either way, everyone dies. The only difference is whether we die fighting or die begging. Nobody had a good answer to that. They voted. The decision was unanimous. Earth would fight. The deadline passed. Venthar destroyed Jakarta, then Cairo, then Lagos. The world watched in horror as ancient cities vanished. But humanity didn't surrender. Instead, something changed. The fear turned into anger. People stopped asking if they should fight and started asking how. Private Hyun Kim was in Busan when the bombs fell. He was 22 years old and had joined the Marines 6 months earlier. His entire battalion was trying to evacuate civilians when the Valtrian attack hit. The building above them collapsed. When Hyun woke up, everyone else was dead. He dug himself out of the rubble and found a city transformed into hell. Buildings were burning. Bodies lined the streets, and among the ruins walked Valtrian soldiers in their powered armor, hunting survivors. Hyun watched from the shadows as 3 Valtrians cornered a family, a mother, father, and 2 children. The aliens didn't take them prisoner. They didn't ask questions. They just executed them. The father tried to shield his children with his body. It didn't matter. Something broke inside Hyun, not his spirit, not his courage, but his fear. He realized he had nothing left to lose. Everyone he knew was dead. His city was gone, so he decided to take some aliens with him. He waited until the Valtrians moved on, then searched their victims. The father had been carrying a pistol. Useless against alien armor, but Hyun took it anyway. Then he followed the Valtrians. They made camp in what used to be a shopping center, 5 soldiers thinking they were safe. Hyun spent 2 hours rigging a trap using gas lines and a timer from a broken oven. When the explosion came, 2 Valtrians died instantly. The other 3 stumbled out, wounded and confused. Hyun shot them. It took an entire magazine to kill each one, aiming for the weak points in their armor. Joints, vision slits, the seals around their helmets. When he was done, he had 5 suits of alien armor and 5 plasma rifles. For the first time since the invasion began, Hyun smiled. Now the fight was fair. Commander Yuna Lee learned about Hyun's attack through resistance channels. Similar reports were coming in from around the world. Humans were learning that Valtrians could die. They bled, they felt pain. They could be killed if you were smart and desperate enough. She started coordinating the scattered groups. Underground networks formed. Resistance cells emerged in every city. People who had never held a gun were building bombs. Scientists were reverse engineering alien technology. Engineers were turning civilian equipment into weapons. Yuna's strategy was simple: make Earth too expensive to conquer. The Valtrians thought in terms of resources and profit. Every conquest had to be worth the cost, so she would make the cost unbearable. She ordered attacks on Valtrian supply convoys, ambushes in urban ruins, poisoning of water sources. The aliens needed water from Earth because their ships' recycling systems couldn't support prolonged operations. Yuna made sure that every drop they drank might be their last. The Valtrians responded with overwhelming force, bombing suspected resistance strongholds. But that just made more humans join the fight. Every destroyed neighborhood created more fighters with nothing to lose. Dr. Taeyang Shin had worked at Seoul's Institute of Biotechnology before the war. He was a peaceful man who had dedicated his life to curing diseases. The invasion changed him. When Valtrian soldiers killed his research team during a raid, Taeyang decided that peace was a luxury Earth couldn't afford. He had access to something valuable: dead Valtrian bodies. The Resistance had killed enough aliens to provide samples. Taeyang studied their biology with single-minded obsession. He dissected them, analyzed their cells, mapped their immune systems. What he found was interesting. Valtrians were remarkably healthy. Their immune systems had evolved to fight diseases on their homeworld, but they had no defense against Earth pathogens. They had been conquering sterile ships and space stations for so long that their bodies had forgotten how to deal with planetary diseases. Taeyang designed something terrible, a virus specifically engineered to attack Valtrian biology. It spread through the air. It had a long incubation period, so infected soldiers would spread it before showing symptoms, and it was lethal. Not immediately, but slowly and painfully. He knew what he was creating: a biological weapon, a war crime by every law humanity had written. But humanity's laws didn't seem very important when aliens were burning cities from orbit. "Will it work?" Yuna asked when he presented the research. "Yes," Taeyang said quietly. "It will kill them, slowly, horribly. How do we deploy it?" "Release it in areas where Valtrian troops are stationed. It will spread naturally from there. Within a month, their entire ground force will be infected." Yuna studied his face. She saw the guilt there, the shame, but also the determination. "Do it," she ordered. The virus was released in 12 cities simultaneously. Valtrian soldiers started getting sick 2 weeks later. At first, they thought it was just fatigue from the campaign. Then soldiers started dying. Their medical staff couldn't figure out what was killing them. By the time they identified it as a biological weapon, it had spread through 40% of their ground forces. High Executor Venthar was furious. He ordered the complete destruction of any city where the virus appeared. Orbital bombardment turned entire metropolitan areas into glass. Millions of humans died, but the virus kept spreading. Valtrian soldiers started refusing deployment to Earth's surface. They called it the Death World. Ships' crews didn't want infected troops returning to their vessels. Quarantine protocols broke down as fear spread through the fleet. Private Hyun Kim had moved beyond revenge. He was now leading a resistance cell of 30 fighters in the ruins of Busan. They had learned to think like guerrillas. Never stay in one place. Hit fast and disappear. Make the enemy afraid of shadows. They captured a Valtrian supply depot using nothing but stolen explosives and careful planning. Inside, they found something valuable: communication equipment and computers. The resistance had been blind, operating in isolated cells. Now they could coordinate. Hyun connected the equipment and broadcast on resistance frequencies. "This is Busan's cell. We have alien computers. We can see their deployments. Who needs intelligence?" Yuna's command center received the broadcast within minutes. She immediately dispatched her best hacker to Busan. Within days, they were reading Valtrian communications. They knew where troops were stationed, where supply ships were landing, where the aliens felt safe, and then they struck those places with brutal efficiency. The war settled into a nightmare for the Valtrians. They controlled the sky but not the ground. Every landing zone became a killing field. Every supply run required military escort. Every building might contain snipers. Every street might be mined. They were losing dozens of soldiers every day to an enemy they couldn't see and couldn't defeat. High Executor Venthar called a meeting with his commanders. "How long until we pacify this planet?" His ground commander looked uncomfortable. "Sir, at current casualty rates, we'll run out of troops before we run out of humans. They're not fighting like any species we've encountered. They don't care about winning. They just want to kill as many of us as possible before they die. Then we'll bomb them from orbit, destroy every city, kill them all. Sir, the High Council wants this planet intact. The resources here are valuable. If we destroy everything, the conquest becomes pointless." Venthar stared at the tactical display showing Earth. The planet was marked with thousands of red dots, each one representing a human attack in the past week. It looked like a disease spreading across the globe. He had conquered 20 planets in his career. The warning came on a Tuesday morning. Captain Jiho Park was drinking his third coffee of the day when every screen in Luna Base lit up with the same message. The transmission was in perfect Korean, English, Mandarin, and 40 other Earth languages. Someone had done their homework. "People of Earth, we are the Valtrian Empire. You have 72 hours to surrender your planet. Comply and your species will serve us. Resist and we will burn your world from orbit. This is your only warning. Jiho stared at the screen. He was 38 years old and had spent 15 years in the Korean Space Defense Force. He had trained for asteroid impacts, solar flares, and rogue satellites. Nobody had trained him for aliens who wanted to conquer Earth. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Daeho, looked pale. Sir, should we contact Earth Command? Jiho glanced out the window. 7 massive ships hung in space beyond the moon. They were beautiful in a terrible way. All smooth curves and gleaming metal. Each one was easily 5 times larger than Luna Base. The largest looked like it could swallow a city. Get me Earth Command, Jiho said quietly, and start preparing every ship we have. Sir, we only have 3 military vessels. The rest are mining ships and cargo haulers. Then we prepare those too. Daeho swallowed hard. Sir, those ships aren't armed. They're not even properly shielded. Jiho turned to face his lieutenant. Do you think those aliens care? If we don't fight, everyone dies anyway. At least this way we die trying. On Earth, Dr. Hanacho was not thinking about aliens. She was thinking about quantum field theory, and why her experimental weapon kept overloading every time she tested it. The electromagnetic pulse device was supposed to disable enemy electronics. Instead, it had a nasty habit of exploding. Her assistant burst into the lab. Dr. Cho, check the news. Hana looked up annoyed. I'm busy, Minso. Unless the world is ending, it can wait. The world is ending. Aliens, they're demanding we surrender. Hana's first thought was that this was a joke. Her second thought, after seeing the footage of alien ships, was that she needed to call the military immediately. Her third thought was that maybe, just maybe, her unstable weapon was exactly what Earth needed. She grabbed her phone and dialed the emergency number for the Defense Ministry. This is Dr. Cho from Seoul Advanced Weapons Research. I have something that might help. The next 60 hours were chaos. World leaders argued about surrender. Some wanted to give up immediately. Others wanted to fight. The United Nations debated while the Valtrian deadline ticked closer. Captain Jiho didn't wait for orders. He gathered every pilot at Luna Base and explained the situation. We have 17 ships. 3 are military vessels with basic weapons. The other 14 are mining and cargo ships. None of them are a match for 1 alien ship, let alone 7. A young pilot raised her hand. Then why are we doing this? Because someone has to try, Jiho said. Because if we don't fight, they'll think we're easy prey. Because our families are down there. He pointed at Earth hanging blue and beautiful in the black sky. I'm not ordering anyone to come, but I'm going. Who's with me? Every hand went up. Dr. Hanacho arrived at Luna Base with her device 30 hours before the deadline. It was roughly the size of a refrigerator and looked like it was held together with tape and prayer. Jiho stared at it doubtfully. You're sure this will work? No, Hana said honestly. But it's the best chance we have. The EMP should disable their shields and electronics. The problem is the range. We need to get within 500 meters of their ships. 500 meters. Jiho's eyes widened. Their point defense systems will tear us apart long before we get that close. I know. That's why I'm coming with you. If I die, I want it to be trying to save Earth, not hiding in a bunker. Jiho studied her face. She looked terrified but determined. He respected that. All right, we'll get you close. The Valtrian deadline expired on Friday morning. The 7 alien ships moved into Earth orbit. Their commander, Fleet Commander Thelvis, was confident. He had conquered 43 planets in his career. Earth would be number 44. The humans hadn't responded to the ultimatum, which meant they were either stupid or brave. Either way, they would learn. Begin bombardment of military installations, Thelvis ordered. Avoid population centers for now. Let them see what resistance costs. The first beam struck a military base in Australia. The second hit a naval yard in Russia. The third destroyed a satellite network hub in Brazil. Earth's military scrambled, but their missiles couldn't even reach the alien ships. Their fighter jets were useless against an enemy in orbit. That's when Jiho made his move. 17 ships launched from Luna Base. The Valtrians detected them immediately. Thelvis laughed when he saw them on his screens. Look at them. Primitive chemical rockets. Their largest ship has less firepower than one of our shuttles. Destroy them. But Jiho wasn't trying to fight. He was trying to get close. The mining ships went first, charging straight at the Valtrian fleet. The aliens' weapons lit them up like fireworks. Ships exploded in brilliant flashes. Pilots died without firing a shot. But every ship they destroyed was a ship that got the others closer. Thelvis frowned. What are they doing? This is suicide. They're buying time, Commander, his tactical officer said. 3 ships just broke through our perimeter. Jiho's military vessel, the Soul's Pride, raced toward the Valtrian flagship with 2 cargo haulers flanking it. Behind him, 14 crews had just given their lives. He wouldn't waste their sacrifice, Dr. Cho. How close? 2,000 meters. Not close enough. We need to get right on top of them. Understood. Jiho's hands were steady on the controls. He had always been good in a crisis. Jiho, all power to forward shields. Everyone else abandoned ship to the cargo haulers. Dr. Cho and I are taking the Pride in alone. Sir, you'll die. That's the plan, Lieutenant. Now move. The cargo haulers peeled away as crew members evacuated. Only Jiho and Hana remained on the Soul's Pride. The Valtrian flagship grew larger in their viewport, filling the entire sky with gleaming metal. Alarms screamed as enemy weapons locked on. Jiho pushed the engines to maximum. 500 meters, 400. The shields were failing. Hull plates were melting. 300 meters, now Dr. Cho. Hana activated her device. The world turned white. The electromagnetic pulse erupted from the Soul's Pride like an invisible wave. It washed over the Valtrian flagship, then spread to the ships beside it. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then the lights went out. 12 Valtrian capital ships went dark simultaneously. Their shields collapsed. Their engines died. Their weapons stopped firing. The massive vessels drifted helplessly in orbit, their crews scrambling to restart emergency systems. The Soul's Pride was gone, vaporized by its own weapon. But Jiho and Hana had done the impossible. They had hurt the Valtrian Empire. Fleet Commander Thelvis stared at his dead screens in shock. In 300 years of service, he had never seen anyone damage a Valtrian ship. Now 12 of them were crippled, and all it had taken was a handful of humans in primitive ships. He gave the order to retreat beyond the moon while they made repairs. As his flagship limped away, Thelvis realized something disturbing. These humans were willing to die just to hurt their enemy. They didn't care about victory. They cared about making the Empire bleed. That made them the most dangerous species he had ever encountered. On Earth, people watched the alien ships retreat. They didn't know about Jiho or Hana, or the 16 other crews who had died. They just knew that someone had fought back. Someone had proven that the aliens could be hurt. It was a small victory, but it was enough to give humanity hope. And hope, as the Valtrians would soon learn, was a dangerous thing.